Hello, 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 friends. Nicholas here with DIVO TED Talks, devoted talks where we take ancient wisdom and practices through a modern lens and experience to help you and those you love and suffering in your personal and greater worlds alike. Oh man, the world is really heavy right now as I'm recording this. Many days into field operations, just when I thought groups were about to agree with each other on things, they're now antagonizing again. And I'm talking about domestically, not even foreignly, although that clearly is not seeing eye to eye either. And it's just heavy and it's hard. And we're expected to go on with life while all this stuff around us is going on. And, I know that some portion of the world feels safe enough to rely on the people in charge to do what's right and for our safety to maintain our freedom. But I also don't know that everybody feels that way. And so I know that the reverse was true, but it's really hard when we're talking about apples and oranges all the time, right? Everybody understands each other's points if it's somebody they love, but if it's not somebody they love or want, then they don't seem to have the time of day for it, which is just so ironic because everybody's like, the golden rule, you should walk in other people's shoes and da da da. Don't judge me for the life I've lived. It's just like, wow, where have we gotten? Like, what are we doing with this? What is the end result eventually with this, right? Like, are we going to be radioactive potholes on the earth because we can't figure out how to do what's right and not act like we're not all on the same rock? Like, we're in different parts of the rock, but like, what's the difference between in the United States between North Carolina, South Carolina, other than man-made laws? There's a sign on the roads that say you've crossed into another state, but if that sign weren't there, would you know? Maybe by the quality of the roads. I know some states are better than others, but like, truly. And then different countries, you know, there's the Great Wall of China, and that was built to do stuff. We have a semi-constructed wall against Mexico, and apparently, without a full wall across the entirety, they can completely end illegal immigration. How interesting is that, right? Like, none of these stories line up. And I'm not saying that one side's story lines up better than the other. Nothing makes sense. Nothing is really working here. And, you know, what I want to tell people is that it's stressful having to listen to this stuff. It's stressful having contentious and tense relationships with those you love because of these types of things, right? There is a level of humanity and morality that just seems to be lacking in general. And I want to talk about it to it from a yogic and Ayurvedic standpoint. To hold animus and hate or anger towards another is still inside of you. We've heard that before, right? From the Buddha, anger is like taking poison and hoping the other person would die. I think that's attributed to Buddha. But like, that's the truth. Like, you are the one experiencing it, therefore you will have all the negative effects from it. No matter how hard you thrash and push at other people or claw at other people, they're not going to feel what you're feeling. And that's independent of the fact of if you're trying to manipulate it with your anger. um I have seen the depths of that in family and people that I've known over the years where they're not feeling great and the world and people are making them feel certain ways, and then they're trying to make others feel the same way as them, whether it is by inflicting pain or manipulative actions that cause people to feel a certain way, basically steering people's feelings to elicit either a response or elicit a specific um state of mind in that person. And it's just awful to witness it, and it's awful to experience it. And I know what it is, right? We have a propensity for homeostasis. Like, that is physiologically in our body, and the same thing is in our mind and our spirits. We like the familiarity. We like predictability. We like these things. It doesn't mean that we need them, and it doesn't mean that we can't benefit if they're not there, but it also can't be something that we hold to as a life raft and have it dictate our stability or not within situations. And so yoga and Ayurveda is letting us know that the beliefs that we hold when we observe other people will cause feelings that will have positive, neutral, or negative impacts on your body. And when your body is sick, then your mind is sick. And then when your mind and body are sick, your spirit is sick as well. And it's this vicious cycle. And so what do we have to change? One, we have to make sure that we're perceiving properly. So we're cleaning the windows of perception, cleaning the perceptive tools that we have so that they are receiving information clearly, so that when we see experiences bounce off of our beliefs and our thoughts, we know how they impact us. And then we can then take those situations and put them to query. To feel this way, what would have to be true? For this circumstance to be true and the feelings that I am feeling with it, what would actually have to be true? And then you're pitting the belief against your feelings and then against, plausible reality, right? Sometimes to feel like you're being abandoned, for instance, what would have to be true? That people are deliberately trying to not message you, deliberately not trying to do things. And then you could demand that they contact you and demand that they do things, but that demand then doesn't keep it authentic or neutral, right? Because then there's an obligation on the other person, right? We used to talk about boundaries, and it used to be in this manner of tug of war. Like, boundaries aren't meant to be a tug of war. That's how the world is operating right now, right? We talked about the borders, like those fake lines between stuff. Then there's a tug of war between power at those borders, or whatever the border may be, trade, diplomacy, things of that nature. And so boundaries aren't meant to be a tug of war. They're meant to be the place that I'm willing to walk up to, and then we can see each other from that boundary, right? It's not meant to say, I can say where to construct the wall, and you're like, you can't pass that line. Don't do it, right? You can say, hey, I'm willing to come up to this amount. For instance, say people being aggressive with you. I am allowing one time of aggression. And if I ever see it again, out, I'm done, whatever. And, another boundary might be how long you let them, you're willing to stay to listen, to talk. But we know when you've hit your limit, that's when you walk away, because your boundaries are about conserving your energy, conserving your well-being, not about controlling somebody's actions to facilitate your well-being, because their actions and our feelings have more to do with our beliefs and our thoughts about what we're experiencing than it does about what they're actually doing, right? Of course, there are exceptions that as a society we have found to be, of the utmost morally depraved. But outside of those, a lot of things are just interpretation. So what do you do with them? Well, one, you clean the windows of perception. Two, you spend time in quiet and solitude so that you have a strong litmus test of what you're feeling in the moment, so that you can head towards joy and steer clear and sidestep pain and suffering, right? That doesn't mean that you're avoiding people and that you're avoiding people, place, and things. It just means that you are, a client just came in. It just means that you are spending time getting to know your balanced and harmonious point so that you can proceed safely and effectively through your life daily. And so it's less about control and more about awareness, so that you don't put any expectation on somebody else for how you feel. Because if you're constantly looking outside of yourself for how to feel, then you're not actually having true organic emotions and experiences. You're having conditional experiences with things that are not always predictable and not always constant. And so look at it as like a rainy day. I can look at the rainy day as rain for my plants and water for my plants, which I do during the summer, trust me. But sometimes in the winter when it's lousy weather, I'm like, oh, it's so terrible. I hate the rain. Well, why give myself a bad day because of something that is out of my control and is unconditional, right? It's going to rain because there's going to be times that it rains and it's good for the plants. So, like, why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? And if I have a good understanding of what my set points are, then I can know what day's a good day to do what, right? So if I have more energy, maybe my boundaries are a little bit more lax. And maybe if I don't have energy, they're much more guarded and restricted towards and closer to me with what I'm willing to do. Maybe that includes taking a mental health day, saying, right? You have to be at the helm, right? You are a pilot. You are the captain of the ship. What are you going to do about it? Other than be well, be free.